Dragons in the Waters by Madeleine L'Engle. 12. The Return of the Phair. In the morning, El Signor Commandante Hurtado assembled the passengers and told them that he had arrested Yan for the theft of the portrait and the murder of Forsyth Phair. Simon slept fitfully toward morning. When he woke up, the canon was putting the last few twigs on the fire. His face looked flushed and feverish. "Sir, are you all right?" Tallis indicated his leg. "It seems to be a bit infected." "Can you walk on it?" "I don't think so, Simon." "Well then," Simon said after a moment, "I better try and find us some berries and stuff for breakfast. We've got another coconut, so we won't get dehydrated. I'll go a little farther afield for the berries, sir." "Not until daylight." "No, sir." Then stay within voice hail. Simon, it would be very easy to get lost. Call out every few seconds and I'll call back. "Yes, sir, I will. I'm sorry about your leg. Does it hurt much?" "A bit." "You were like St. George killing the dragon last night." "A far cry, I'm afraid." "You were close enough to St. George for me. Wild boars are probably more dangerous than dragons. Hurtado or someone should be along to find us at any moment. Hurtado or someone should be along to find us any moment now." "Yes, Simon, they ought. It should be daylight soon." Miss Leonis rose early at Dragon Lake as she did at Phair. She awoke feeling refreshed, although her heart still seemed to rattle like a dry leaf. With considerable effort she dressed in her blue and white dimity and folded the soft gown she had been given to sleep in. Then she climbed carefully down the steps of Umar's dwelling place and walked across the greensward to the lake's edge. Her breath came in small, shallow gasps. Umar Zanai was there before her, alone, sitting in Charles's favorite position. The old woman sat down silently, slightly to one side and behind him. Around her she could sense the sleeping village. Someone was moving on the porch of one of the carrying places. Soon Dragon Lake would be awake. All around her she heard birdsong. A fish flashed out of the lake and disappeared beneath the dark waters. Above her the stars dimmed and the sky lightened. When the sun sent its first rays above the mountain, Umar Zanai rose and stretched his arms upward. He began to chant. Miss Leonis could not understand the Velvet Quistano words, but it seemed clear to her that the old chieftain was encouraging the sun in its rising, urging it, enticing it, giving the sun every psychic aid in his power to lift itself up out of the darkness and into the light. When the great golden disk raised itself clear of the mountain, the chanting became triumphal, joyful song. At the close of the paean of praise, the old man turned to the old woman and bent down to greet her with 3 formal kisses. She asked, "You are here every morning?" He nodded, smiling. "It's part of my duties as chief of the Quistanos." "To help the sun rise." "That is my work." "It would not rise without you?" "Oh, yes, it would rise. But as we are dependent on the sun for our crops, for our lives, it is our courtesy to give the sun all the help in our power, and our power is considerable. I do not doubt that." "We believe," the old man said quietly, "that everything is dependent on everything else, that the power behind the stars has not made anything to be separate from anything else. The sun does not rise in the sky in loneliness. We are with him. The moon would be lost in isolation if we did not greet her with song. The stars dance together and we dance with them." Miss Leonis smiled with joy. "I too believe that. I am grateful that you help the sun each morning, and when the moon wanes and the sky is dark, you are with the dying moon, are you not? When the tide ebbs and the moon is dark, we are there. My tide is ebbing. We know, Signora Phair. It will be an inconvenience to you. I am sorry." "Signora Phair, it is part of our gift. We will be with you." "But I am not afraid." "But you are afraid for the Phair." "I am afraid for Simon." "Do not fear, Signora Phair. You have come to redeem the past." "That is not in my power," she said sadly. He looked at her calmly. "You will be given the power." I can make no decisions for Simon. But you will allow him to make decisions for himself? I have always tried to do so. I will not try to influence him by telling him that I will not be returning to South Carolina. I wish I shared your certainty that he is all right. Umar's and I nodded calmly. He will be here before long. The Englishman is with him has been hurt and has to be carried. A litter will be made for him the same way that a litter was once made for the Phair. How do you know all this? He smiled, all the wrinkles in his tanned face fanning upward. We have our own ways of seeing. They will be found today, your boy and his friend. I am not sure when, but today. I am grateful. Come. With amazing agility he sprang to his feet. It is time we broke our fast. You have need. Miss Leonis accepted his strong hand. She could not have risen without him. Thank you. I am grateful to have a few more days. It would ease me if I could be certain about Simon. Can you keep me going that long? He looked at her steadily. You will have that much time. It is our gift. Sometimes, when we have sent out young men to the cities, to the hospitals and medical schools, the gift is laughed at. Sometimes our young men laugh too, and do not return. I know, she sighed. The great god science has failed us because it was never meant to be a god, but only a few true scientists understand that. Again he smiled. There are things you must teach us, Signora Phair. The young Umars seek time with you. They will teach me, too. He held out his arm to support her, and together they walked slowly back to the village. To the passengers on the Orion, it seemed even hotter and more humid the second day in port than it had the first. But now that Hurtado had made an arrest, the unloading of the ship began. No one was allowed on the foredeck, though the passengers could watch through the windows in the salon. One of the sailors sat in his high cab and manipulated the levers which controlled the great yellow cranes. From the promenade deck, the passengers could see the station wagon hover over the dock, as the hearse had hovered, then dropped down gently, all four wheels touching earth simultaneously. Dr. Wordsworth and Dr. Eisenstein left the salon for the deck, seeking what little breeze there was. They leaned on the rail and watched a large crate swing under the waiting mandibles of a forklift. They know what they're doing, Dr. Wordsworth said with considerable admiration. Dr. Eisenstein turned from the dock toward her companion. Inez, do you really think it was Jan? Hurtado's no fool, Dr. Wordsworth said, but I confess I was surprised. However, since I've been unable to come up with a prime suspect myself, I have to assume that he knows what he's doing. But after what you told me about Mr. Phair being Fernando, despite the heat, Dr. Wordsworth shivered. Interesting, she remarked casually. How heat can affect one like cold. Hurtado was extremely courteous with me. I have great respect for him. But has it occurred to you that what I told him may have been what he needed to put his finger on Jan? But Jan is so open and friendly, and almost as vulnerable and innocent seeming as Geraldo. Don't you realize, Ruth, that the innocent and the vulnerable are the very ones preyed upon by types like FB? But Jan! I don't like it either, but I am grateful it's over. Dr. Eisenstein glanced at the chair where she had put her straw bag of notebooks and academic periodicals. Mr. Hurtado says we will be allowed ashore soon. I'm glad he wasn't too hard on you last night, Dr. Wordsworth laughed, a more spontaneous laugh than her companion had heard in some time. Hurtado is an intelligent and successful and highly desirable man. I think he found me attractive, though if he had suspected me of murder, that would have made no difference. But do you know, Ruth, it's funny, theatrical Vermeer I'm drawn to. Human beings are the most peculiar of all creatures. Dr. Eisenstein smiled. The feeling between you and Mr. Vermeer seems to be mutual. Here you go matchmaking again, no, Ruth. Vermeer beams on the eerie world, and only he knows what goes on behind that smile. And I certainly have no desire to lose my heart to a Dutch consul in an obscure backwash country which is no longer mine. He knows a lot about anthropology, which makes up for all the deficiencies In your eyes. Oh, I know. He's not the idiot he appears. But all I meant was that Hurtado has the machismo, and it doesn't even touch me. I'm sorry about Jan. I liked him. But Fernando Propace was a master at corrupting innocence. Dr. Eisenstein put a restraining hand on Dr. Wordsworth's arm. Look! Jan, his face pale, was walking down the gangplank somewhat awkwardly because he was handcuffed. A policeman walked in front of him and another behind him. The two women watched as he was pushed into a police car and driven off. And we'll pause there.